So you're just starting out on Davinci, you've been watching my tutorials, you know some effects, but you want to become a faster, more efficient, and just overall better editor. Keep watching. So one of the first tricks in Premiere Pro, if you were to import sound effects, graphics, well, footage, then you would have to open up a project and then create a bin, drag the sound effects, whatever it is, into that. And then if you were to make a new project, you have to open up a new project, create another bin, drag the sound effects back in, and then create a new project, drag the sound effects back in, and over and over and over again. Whereas in Davinci, you don't have to do that. What you can do is go up to View and come all the way down here to Show Power Bins. And inside this power bin, you can add whatever you want in it. But it means that in here, you can add a new bin, call it Sound Effects. You can drag in all of the sound effects that you have, and they will be available to you in every project you make. So if I was to close down this one, so this is where I edit all my videos, if I was to close this one down, and then I opened up my tutorials project, I go over here to Power Bins and Master, and then all my sound effects are still in there. So it's a really easy way to make it a bit more efficient, a lot easier for you. Then don't have to worry about opening up a new project, having to drag them all back in. They're all there. Use Power Bins now. The next thing I would do is head up to Davinci Resolve and go to keyboard customization. Now you can do this in any way that you want. So Peter McKinnon's editor actually uses like A, S, D, and then a couple numbers. I currently just use numbers. So I have my number 1 key set to cut. So if I have my playhead over all of them, it will cut all of them. If I have a specific clip selected, it will cut just that clip. And then I have my number 2 key set to trim start. So it trims that footage to the start. So if I start talking here, I can just click number 2 and it will start it there rather than me having to cut and then delete and so on. And then number 3 is set to trim end. So the same thing, but just reverse. And then my number 4 is my ripple delete. If I was to make a cut here and I want to start all this at the start, I can click 4 and it will ripple delete it all the way to the start. And then my number 5 key I have is just in the normal delete. So then everything that I need to use is just all on the top first 5 numbers. Now you can do the same thing as that, or you can do whatever you prefer. If you're a gamer so you're used to WASD, you can go up to customization and set whatever you want to any of these keys just by clicking on it and then changing that, and then you can change that code. So if you see that W is currently dynamic trim mode, you can change that to whatever you want. If you do want to do a similar thing to me, so it adds a cut. So first of all, we need to search for razor, and that is just a normal cut. Trim start is where it brings it forward. Trim end is where it brings it the back to, also to the what? Trim start is where it gets rid of the start and starts the footage at the playhead. Trim end is where it ends the footage at where your playhead is. Number 4 is ripple delete, so just search for ripple delete. And then number 5 is the delete selected. So if you go up here and search for those options, if those are the ones that you want, you can set those. If you search for delete selected, you can change that to whatever key that you prefer. So an even better shortcut actually, rather than making the cut or trimming the start to the playhead and then having to delete that space, you can do it with one button, and it's end to playhead and start to playhead. So it does the same thing that my 2 and 3 keys do, where it trims it, but it also ripple deletes. I didn't know this existed until I saw Kirk do it in Pete McKinnon's video, so props to him, but I'm gonna have to do that now. So rather than having it as Control, Shift, and bracket, I'll set that to my number 2, and then I'll set this one, no, other way around. That one to my number 2, and that one to my number 3. So now, if I want to start this footage here, and I click 2, it ripple deletes as well as cuts it at the playhead. And I'm going to be using that for more often because that's just a lifesaver. No, it's not, it's a time saver. So you might have seen a lot of my videos, I do some zoom ins and zoom outs, just like this slow sort of zoom in and zoom outs. And a lot of you might think that I add a keyframe, go to the end of the footage. So I've got to add the footage on the keyframe on the zoom, go to the end of the footage, zoom that in a little bit, 1.3, and then it will have a sort of slow zoom to it. But there's a much easier way of doing it. It's all up here. There's something called dynamic zoom, and you turn that on, and you can change this to easy in, so it's a lot easier. And then you can go up to this button here, so on this side over here, you click the drop down, dynamic zoom, and you can start your in point and your out point. So if you want to start it zoomed in and then go to the zoomed out, then it will start at the green, end in the red, or you can swap it around. So if you want to start it zoomed out and then have it zoom in, you can start it like this, and then it will start zoomed out and then go in. So there's another handy little tool on the timeline of Davinci. So on Premiere Pro, you had the option to lock a track. So it meant that if you were to make a cut on all of them, it wouldn't cut the locked track. But on Davinci, you also have the option rather than locking it, because obviously if you lock it, you can't make any changes to the track. Like it just moves the top one. I can't change the volume or anything of the music, of the sound. And so instead of that, you can just click this one, Auto Track Selector. So you can still make changes to the bottom track if it's its own track and not connected to clip. But it means that when you make a cut, it doesn't make the cut for you. So for example, if I was to do number 2 here, it would just move the visual and not the audio. And the last one I think I mentioned before, but head up to playback, go to render cache and turn that on smart. If it's on none, you will see up here, if I zoom in here and I go back to playback, render cache and turn it smart, a line pops up. Blue means it's rendered, and if it's red, it's not rendered, but it does it in the background for you. So either when it's paused or when you're going through the rest of the video, that red bit will render itself. Whereas in Premiere, you would have to do the in and out points, press enter or go up to the options and pre-render, and then render it all through before you can watch it back smoothly and see if you need to make any changes or export the whole thing and do the same process. Whereas this does the rendering in the background for you, and Davinci is just insane. But yeah, there are just some small tricks to make you a more efficient and better and faster and insane and editor in Davinci.